Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Climate Governance Malaysia's Roundtable Series 2025 in partnership with the Tropical Rainforest Conservation and Research Centre. My name is Agkillah, and I'll be the moderator for this session. The CGM Roundtable Series was first launched in 2022, and it has since become a collaborative platform where policymakers, industry leaders, academics, and corporate players come together to crowdsource practical policy recommendations for Malaysia's climate transition. This year, the 2025 series is running 19 sessions across 6 key themes: biodiversity, agriculture, energy and resources transition, finances, built environment, and community engagement. We are grateful to all the partners and subject matter experts who are curating and leading these sessions. A special thanks also goes to PwC Malaysia, who are supporting us in capturing the outcomes and helping translate them in concrete actions. Today's roundtable focuses on one of the most urgent biodiversity challenges in Malaysia, human-wildlife conflict on roads, and we'll be talking about solutions and the way forward. The reality is sobering. Earlier this year, a young elephant calf was killed in a collision with a lorry on the East-West Highway in Great Perak, while its mother stood by its side for hours. A heartbreaking image many of us will not forget because it also happened on Mother's Day. In the past 2 years, 6 million tigers have been killed on roads, a devastating number when fewer than 150 remain in the wild. And for tapirs, the situation is equally alarming. Research shows that dozens are killed each year on highways across Peninsular Malaysia. So these are not isolated events. They show that roadkill is a recurring and escalating threat to some of Malaysia's most endangered species as highways and railways expand. The risk will only increase unless we act decisively. That is why we are here today. This session will explore practical approaches that combine science, conservation experience, engineering solutions, and policy frameworks. But beyond discussion, the aim of this session is very clear. We want to arrive at concrete policy recommendations and asks that can be taken forward to decision makers and integrated into Malaysia's national planning and infrastructure development. We are very fortunate today to have 4 experts with us. I'll first invite each speaker to share their views, and then we'll have a conversation together, followed by your questions. So before we begin, just a quick reminder to our speakers, we'll keep strictly to time so that all voices are heard. And most importantly, we want to capture practical policy suggestions for Malaysia's climate and biodiversity agenda. For our audience, please use the Q&A box throughout the session. Don't wait until the end to submit your questions here. At the end of the session, a Zoom survey will also pop up, so you can also share your feedback and help us improve. So to start us off, I would like to invite Dr. Wong Phinn, Associate Professor at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, the Principal Investigator of the Management and Ecology of Malaysian Elephants, or MEAM project. She's also the Deputy Chair of the IUCN Asian Elephant Specialist Group, So Dr. Phinn, could you share with us what the science tells us, which species are most at risk, what the data shows about their movement patterns, and what lessons we can draw from research so far? The floor is yours, Dr. Phinn.
Thank you, Dr. Agkillah. So I'm going to share a few slides. Please allow me to share my screen. One moment, please. Are you able to see my screen? Yes?
Yes, we can see
All
your
right.
screen.
Yes. So in Peninsular Malaysia, you can see at the map of Peninsular Malaysia over the years, our forest is shrinking and increasingly becoming more fragmented. Cases of roadkills is alarming, especially for endangered species. We have elephants, tigers, clouded leopard, tapirs. So of all these species, tapir, in terms of roadkill, consistently annually, we will receive reports on tapir roadkills. And some of this population are not really that big. Like, for example, in Peninsular Malaysia, we have about 1,500 elephants, and it's about the same number for tapir. But for Malayan tiger, we only have about 150 tigers left. So all these statistics is actually quite alarming. When we look at the research done by Naim on modeling elephant movement across the different forest landscape, we recognize there are some areas whereby connectivity is affected. But in this particular area, Great Jelly Highway in Perak, there is still connectivity. So that's why the wildlife are able to pass through, cross the road. When you look at the statistics in general, the number of accidents, Perak is at the 5th spot. But for the Greek Jelly Highway, because it crosses a mountainous terrain, so that's why we see a lot of cases of car accidents. Some of these are not caused by wildlife. It's just, with drivers driving on the road, maybe they are tired, or maybe they were fast, or maybe the road is slippery, and accidents could happen on this road. And in terms of overall statistics for Malaysia, we look at the different groups of vehicles involved with accidents. This is taken for the Statistik Pengangkutan Malaysia 2019, Kementerian Pengangkutan Malaysia. We can see that the highest group we have is buses, 10%. That means 1 in 10 buses involved in accident, followed by trucks and vans, which means 1 in 25. Cars and four-wheel drive, 4%, which translate to 1 in 25. And motorbikes is 0.82%, although the percentage seems small. And in terms of number is 1 in 125 motorcycles involved in accidents. But because we have a lot of motorcyclists, hence motorcyclists made up of 60% of the number of fatalities here. So if you look at Greek Jelly Highway, so this is the view from the viaduct whereby the elephant can cross underneath the road. We have the viaduct, but this cater only to one span of the road. And this is, we are talking about 100-kilometer highway, yeah? So I have to credit the photo to TRCRC for this. And along this road, yes, we find there's roadkill of elephants, and also incidents of poaching, elephant being poached by hunters, illegally, of course. And we can see Wildlife Department has captured at least 2 groups of elephant poachers in Perak. It's encouraging now to know that there are efforts by organizations out there like WWF, Rimau. They are removing snares and doing patrolling. So this helps to actually manage the situation on the ground. So here I have a video just to show how elephant crosses the road. Yeah, you can see not only the road, but also what is around the road, barriers and things like that could affect their movement in that sense. Some of these barriers are for protection of motorists. So we are also looking at ways, we're having discussion with engineers to see how can some of these barriers be wildlife friendly or elephant friendly to allow the elephant to be able to cross the road safely. Yeah. So from our data, from the GPS collared elephants, we find that elephants mostly cross Greek Jelly Road at night. From here, we have from 6 p.m. onwards, the number of crossing increase, and it lasts up to around 8 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, so during that time, we have more frequent crossings of elephants. And elephants, we find them, they tend to stay near to the road. So our recommendations after the incidents in Greek Jelly Highway, we recommend that yes, daytime, the motorists can move at a higher speed, but at night, we need to impose a lower speed limit and enforce it. If possible, we try to limit the number of vehicles on the road at night, and we can have facilities such as budget hotels for drivers to rest at Bersia, Greek Jelly, Kelantan areas. And these homestays or budget hotels can also provide alternative livelihood for local communities who are facing human-elephant conflict. So this we see as a potential win-win solution. And if the authorities can continue the effort in carrying out patrolling and monitoring, and all this, I think, in the end will benefit the wildlife tourism in Belum Temenggong. So to find out more about our work, you can just scan this QR code and it will lead you to a paper that we published in the past together with Perlitan, the Wildlife Department. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Yeah. Okay, back to you, Dr. Agkillah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phinn, for grounding us in the science, and the numbers and patterns really help us to understand why this is such a critical issue. And I can totally resonate with, driving through late at night and being sleepy on roads, right? So to build on the science, let's turn to the conservation and field perspective. Our second speaker is Dr. Jason Horn, the Associate Director at WWF Malaysia, heading the Peninsular Malaysia Conservation Program and also the Tiger Conservation Program, with decades of experience across Peninsular and East Malaysia. Dr. Jason Horn and WWF Malaysia have been closely involved in protecting species along some of these highways, including the East-West Highway, which many of us will recognize as a hotspot for wildlife. Dr. Jason, could you share what you and your team have observed on the ground, what has worked, what hasn't, and what practical strategies can make a difference? The floor is yours, Dr. Jason.
Thank you very much, Agkillah, and I hope you can hear me loud and clear. This is my slide, and I'm just going to run through 2 key points, frame it in a way to see why this area is important. I'd like to start off by saying that our focus here is to look into one particular highway, which is the Agkillah Highway, and which is a very important connectivity. It's within a biodiversity hotspot and part of a larger conservation landscape in Peninsular Malaysia. Now, historically, we need to know this area before the highway was constructed. It is actually a contiguous forest that range from along the Titi Wangsa range that straddles from the western part of Peninsular Malaysia right down to southern Thailand. So this area is also known as Northern Banjaran Titi Wangsa landscape. It's a huge area of about 850,000 hectares. It's a home to numerous species of wildlife, and this is what makes this place very unique. Now, how has government actually recognized this as an important area? Under the Tiger Conservation Action Plan, this is identified as one of the key areas for tiger conservation. It's also within a global tiger conservation priority landscape. The other bit is it's also home to all 10 species of hornbills that we can actually find within Malaysia, and it's within this landscape as well. The National Elephant Conservation Action Plan, NECAP 2.0, also specified this area as one of a very important managed elephant range in Peninsular Malaysia. Again, reaffirm that this is indeed quite an important landscape for elephants. And lastly, at the local level, the local action plan, Rancangan Kawasan actually has designated this area as a core area for elephant conservation as well. So all of this is put together, it just reaffirms why this particular landscape is such important for wildlife, in particular for our topic of discussion today, elephant. Perhaps you just want to ask, how about the road? Let's revisit this road here. It's 215-kilometer highway. It's the only tar road that actually connect the Agkillah town and also Agkillah, and it runs through this forest complex. It was built in the 1970s. Now, one thing that we need to acknowledge, it cuts through a very important biodiversity area, and it's within the Amanjaya Forest Reserves, and it just fragment this forest that connects from the north to the south. And there are viaducts you can see that was actually constructed. You'd probably be asking then, why do elephants, for instance, are actually involved in road kills? And this is the reason. They come down to the roads because they're grassland for them to feed on. So to move between landscapes, this animal actually need to, let's put it this way, historically they've been moving, now they have to cross highway. So the question now is, what else can we do in addition to the viaducts? This is where we like to propose, maybe look into some kind of habitat enrichment program along this highway that we can actually work, or not to actually build it next to the highway. The idea is to see how we can actually attract these animals away from the highway into maybe areas that we can actually look at. There are many other NGOs, TRCRC, for instance, are already working in these landscapes. And we thought that this open grassland area along transmission line could offer a good opportunity. We could actually work on this. The previous webinar, the session before us actually talked about habitat enrichment. And I think there's a lot of things that we could actually work on along here. If you just do a Google map and see where this transmission line is, it just runs parallels. It's about 500 meters from the main road. And I think this is something that we could explore. How do we do this? We also have the private sectors who are actually managing these lines to actually come in and really support us. You might be wondering, has this worked elsewhere? Yes, let's look into our colleagues that we've been working with some plantation companies in Sabah, where we actually work with them and with the Sabah government and agricultural companies to design areas that can actually provide unrestricted passage for, in this particular instance, the Bornean elephant. How does it work? You might be wondering. The idea is to actually create a wildlife corridor through these plantations that include wall palm and also tree plantations, and get the buy-in from the company to do this. So our work with the Sabah Sawwoods actually help restore more than 1,000 hectares of ecological corridor through tree planting activities, including fruit trees and grass, right, to restore the corridors. So furthermore, you might be wondering, what happened to the palms? Well, in the early years, when the palms are growing, we have fences to actually prevent them from moving. When the palms are big enough, about 8 years old, all these fences are removed, so that let the elephants roam freely within these plantations. So using these examples, right, we could actually explore the options for the Great Agkillah Highway, although there's no plantations there, but I think it's about creating habitat so that animals can continue moving there. So with this, it has got other effects that once we have the habitat for herbivores, other species might come, such as deer, and this can actually be good food sources for other species like tiger, and we know that tigers do end up in roadkills as well. So it's got that multiplier effect for other species that actually rely along the food chain. So I just want to actually conclude by saying that we can use these examples and maybe you can actually explore for the Great Agkillah Highway. And my take-home point for this is I would like to maybe say to all our participants here that we'd like to actually see this Great Agkillah Highway as a very important part of this big landscape of conservation and protected area in Northern Peninsula Malaysia. Have to build that into our thinking. Maybe you have to even look into how we can actually look into the regulations so that we have greater conservation and protection within this landscape. Second bit is maybe let's be a little bit thinking outside the box, even inside forest reserve, to think how we can actually embed wildlife habitat enrichment as part of our restoration activities. It may not be involved just planting trees. It can be also grassland, open grazing areas as part of our habitat enrichment that will actually benefit not only the forest reserves, but for the animals and wildlife within there. And I guess the last bit is we need all multi-actors to come together. The government alone are doing things, but that's insufficient. NGOs are already working on this. We need private sectors to really come in, and I think they're quite happy to also chip in and be supportive of these movements. With that, thank you very much. I pass it back to you, Dr. Agkillah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jason, for bringing in the field realities. I think we all can also resonate about driving on highways and what we can do when we see forest areas along these ways. For our audience, just a reminder, if you have questions, please put it in the chat. And if you have any comments as well, also please feel free to put it on the chat. And now we'll move on to our third speaker, Dr. G. Balamurugan, who's also the CEO of Alistra and an environmental sustainability professional with over 35 years of experience across Asia. He has advised governments and industry on infrastructure, transport, energy, climate, water resources, and biodiversity. Dr. Bala, the question to you is, eco-bridges and viaducts often come up as solutions, but they are costly and not always effective. What realistic engineering options exist for Malaysia, and how might innovations help reduce roadkill incidents more effectively? The floor is yours, Dr. Bala.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Agkillah. Good morning, everyone. Let me start by saying that roads are important. I like roads. Roads allow me to go to work, visit my family and friends, and roads help the country develop, right? From the day British went the first road, the La Road, Kamunting Road was built in 1877, I think. Malaysia has built 200,000 kilometers of roads. So we are not dealing with a single road. We are dealing with 200,000 kilometers of roads, which is a major challenge in itself, right? So how do we protect wildlife across such a vast network of roads? So any solution that we look at, we cannot, I know some roads are more prominent than the others, like the Great Jali, but the reality is roadkills happens everywhere. And we need to look at solutions that will allow us to address the problem across the country, right? So there are two ways of looking at this. First is about roads that are going to be built. That means the roads are currently in planning stage. And number two, a problem caused by roads that already exist. Let me touch the easier one first, the roads which are being planned, right? So because the roads are being planned, so there's still time to intervene and improve how it's built. So I think the key here is to intervene as early as possible. For most roads in Malaysia, they go through various stages of planning. They usually start with the high-level statutory plans. It starts with the structure plans, and then they go into feasibility studies. They go into the EIA and design stage before they are built. So for new roads, in order to build them better, we need to intervene as early as possible. And I think every road goes through a feasibility stage, and I think that's the right time to intervene. And by identifying the area which the new roads will pass through, identifying hotspots, and so that when we design roads, new roads, we can avoid the problem entirely rather than building them and trying to solve the problem later on, right? So the second one, which I like to mention, is existing roads, which is, like I said, there are 200,000 kilometers of roads. So what do we do? It's not an easy problem to solve. So Great Jali Highway, 100 kilometers, but we have 200,000 kilometers of roads across the country, right? So there are few things that we can do. There are been suggestions to reduce speed limits, impose restriction on vehicle traveling, and Dr. Jason mentioned about habitat enrichment away from the road. So all these are good ideas. So, but when we look at solutions, we need to also think of what solutions might work best across the country rather than on specific roads, right? So because the problem is a large problem, it's not limited to just one road. So so what I propose is, there are a few solutions. This is what I can think of. For new roads, number one, this is just for newly planned roads. Number one, what we need is, if anyone from JKR is here, we need a new Arahan Teknik Jalan. So Arahan Teknik Jalans are guidance documents developed by JKR to help engineers build and design roads. So there are Arahan Teknik Jalan on how thick your road should be, how a corner should be designed, how it should be lined. So we need one specifically on road design relating to wildlife crossings, or road design relating to wildlife hotspots. So this is called Arahan Teknik Jalan, which doesn't exist now. And I think with that, road design becomes better and more effective. So that's number one. Number two, I think public consultation at the feasibility stage of new roads will also help us avoid many problems. At the moment, there's no public consultation, there's no public display of new roads, except at the EI stage, which is a bit too late. So I like to suggest that there is public consultation at the feasibility stage of road planning that will allow us to identify problems at a very early stage. And the third point on new roads is, so again, I like to go back to feasibility, because I think that is the crucial point in road planning, that where we can actually identify and address problems. And I think we need to devote a lot more resources, especially on environment and social expertise at that stage. At the moment, there is some, but it's very small. So I like to see greater inputs at the feasibility stage. So, okay, that's for future roads. For existing roads, my recommendations will be speed limits. I agree with the previous speakers. We need speed limits at selected locations, not everywhere. And speed limits must come with large and clear signages. Often you see speed limits, you can barely see them, they're so small. So you need large, clear signages so that drivers are aware. You see, most of our signages are very small, so they're not very useful. So large and clear signages at selected location coupled with traverse bus. You all know what a traverse bus, right? When your car goes, it makes a noise that slows down the cars. And also lighting at those traverse locations. Very specific. We don't want to do this across all roads, but selected locations which are critical. Number two, we need to do hardscaping, again, selected location, like what Dr. Jason mentioned, so that we minimize food sources near roads, so that there's no reason for elephant to come near roads to look for food, right? The third point I like to stress is, in some cases, we really need to redesign or retrofit roads, which means we have to redesign and put in viaducts, because given such a large network of roads, we have 200,000 kilometers, almost impossible to enforce speed limits and patrolling. So, and certain key locations, we need to have viaducts. And viaducts, I think, in the past, viaducts have not worked very well. I think it's not a problem with the viaduct. I think in Malaysia, all of us are learning. So now we have a lot more evidence, a lot more data that future viaducts can be better designed, better located. And my last point, recommendation I'd like to make is, I think we should embark on a pilot project, an interesting pilot project where we use sensors, use AI and electronic road signages that will allow presence of wildlife on roads to be notified to drivers, right? Just like Waze will tell you where the police cameras are. So you can similarly use AI and sensors to tell drivers that there are elephants 500 meters ahead or 1 kilometer ahead. I think we need to embark on a pilot project to make this work. So these are some of my suggestions, Dr. Agkillah. I will stop here for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bala, for showing us what infrastructure solutions are feasible. Again, to our audience, if you have questions about engineering interventions or infrastructure planning, please post them in the QA box and we'll get to them later. As for our final speaker for this session, we have Dr. Khairul Naim, who is the Deputy Undersecretary at the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. He's also Malaysia's lead negotiator for multilateral biodiversity agreements and a fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. Dr. Naim, from the ministry's perspective, how is policy addressing this growing challenge, and how can governments, developers, and conservationists work together to integrate wildlife protection into future infrastructure planning?
Thank you, Dr. Agkillah, esteemed panelists, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. We have heard many possible and practical solutions by the previous panelists, looking at various perspectives. Among others, Dr. Iping, for instance, looking at the science and behavioral data. Dr. Bala trying to addressing new and existing road from the engineering perspective. And Dr. Jason has also highlighted to us a number of possible solutions in habitat enrichment. To respond to what have been asking by Dr. Agkillah, I would like to highlight here two key documents that can assist us in making an action based on key policy directions. As what you can see on the slide, the long-term Malaysia's development plan, RMK 13, 2026 to 2030, highlighted that the need to strengthen development planning and implementation. This means that for any construction of a new road, the aspect of development planning is very crucial at all levels, not only at the government levels, but all segments of society. Now we look at the national policy on biodiversity, a policy that provides framework for us to mainstream biodiversity across sectors. In this policy, it has 5 targets which are related to actions on mitigating human-wildlife conflict on roads, namely Target 1 on raising awareness, Target 3 on special planning, 4 mainstreaming biodiversity, 10 on strengthening ecological linkages, and the last one is on protecting threatened species. Now, let us look at the targets and what are the target aims to achieve. As you can see here, target 1 highlight the need for effective communication, education, and public awareness. And the SEPA, or in short SEPA, must reach to all segments of society. Nowadays, we have many media tools that can assist us in making our SEPA more effective using the social media and also the mobile application. On target 3, target 3 is on strengthening biodiversity conservation element in development plan, not only at the national development plan, but also to the state structure plan and local district plan. In this view, the spatial planning aspect must be incorporated at the landscape level so that the key wildlife habitats can be taken into consideration before any proposed development. On target 4, to incorporate biodiversity conservation principle into different sector. For instance, in infrastructure sector, we should ensure that linear infrastructure development must include measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate habitat fragmentation, and also to avoid wildlife roadkill. And on target 10, aiming at maintain, restoring, and enhance ecological connectivity within forest complex so that we can ensure key habitat or key conservation landscape remain sizable and connected. And last but not least, to adopt scientific and coexistent approaches. This mainly for existing roads. Not much we can do. We must adopt scientific and coexistent approach, among others, to establish collaborative partnership with various stakeholders to implement holistic management strategies. By looking at all these 5 key targets, which are related to mitigating wildlife human conflict, it shows that the preventive measures are crucial because preventive measures will help us in better planning, whereas the reactive measures is sometimes not effective, and most of the time will incur huge expenditure in its implementation. In order to expedite or in order to execute the action, the next one, please. The national policy on biological diversity has provided an implementation framework. The highest one is the National Biodiversity Council, chaired by the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, comprising 9 federal ministers and all chief ministers, Menteri Besar, as a good platform for federal as well as states and various stakeholders to find solutions of how we can have a realistic solutions for human-wildlife conflict mitigation. What I would like to draw your attention here is on the lowest tier of the implementation framework, which is the thematic working group. Perhaps we can utilize this thematic working group to establish a dedicated TWG for wildlife human conflict, so that we can drive and also monitor actions from various stakeholders and can do all the reporting up to National Biodiversity Council. In addition to this framework, we have also a number of potential committees that can be leveraged in order for us to have an effective implementation on addressing human-wildlife conflict. Among others are the Technical Committee of Human-Wildlife Conflict Management at the state level, and also the Human-Wildlife Conflict Management Committee at the national level, chaired by the Secretary General of Jabatan Perkhidmatan. In addition to those committees, we can also leverage the Technical Committee for Road Safety under the Ministry of Transport. I think I would like to stop here, and if time is permitted, I will try to highlight the key recommendation from our recent engagement session together with WWF and various stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Naim, for giving us that policy overview. It's good to hear how governance is starting to align with the realities on the ground. And I think for the next session, we will move to answering questions that has been posted by our participants. And I think the first question that I have here, it's more broad and it's to all of you. What role does the layman play in reducing human-wildlife conflict? Who would like to go with that? Maybe Dr. Jason?
Well, I can start off, yeah. I think what is important is let's recognize that the Malaysian public are also road users, and at some point in time, we'll be traveling on some of these roads, right? As rightly pointed out by some of the speakers, one of the role for you to do is to really understand where you're actually entering. If it's a critical area for wildlife, which I actually mentioned that in my slide, I think have that kind of consciousness in you that you are quite likely to encounter wildlife, to actually have that kind of preparation, drive slow, maintain your speed limit, and be really vigilant, right? But I guess the other bit is to maybe take a more proactive approach, right? To really voice out your opinions if you do encounter wildlife coming on the roads, right? To be an active participant in actually informing authorities if there are certain issues of wildlife on the roads. So perhaps these are some of the key things we could maybe as a general public take note of. And the fact that we're in Malaysia, which is actually quite biodiversity rich, and we have one of the best infrastructures in this region, means that we have both sides of the world where we have wildlife also encroaching into our roads. So I think this is a very starting point if we could, as a road users, to be really aware of where we actually are in terms of encountering wildlife on the road. Maybe that's just very simple, but I know that there's a lot more that could be done. Happy to let others answer as well. Over.
Would any of the other speakers like to chime in, or should we move on to the next question?
I guess I can add on just a little bit to that. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
can hear you,
Okay.
Dr. Ipan.
I think because the road users are the one that are closest, to the landscape, and they are the one encountering the wildlife like elephants crossing the road. So I think awareness and knowing what to do in different situations is very important. Yeah. And of course, even the people living in the city also can play a role because a lot of the community in the rural area will face things like human-elephant conflict, and they need the support in terms of funding or in terms of helping them to overcome some hardship in that sense. Because when we look at smallholders, especially, if there's conflict or if there's they lost their livelihood is affected, having some other source of income, let's say from homestay or budget hotels, it does help the community to then be able to, withstand the hardship. Yeah. So I think in some sense, everyone can play a role. Those in the urban area can help to support the community in the rural area, and also pay attention while they're on the road. Yeah, that's all from my side. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Ipin. I would now like to move to the next question. It is an interesting one, and I think this is directed to Dr. Bala. So it reads, the federal constitution mandates that the federal government provides a state road grant to each state to cover the cost of maintaining state roads, calculated based on the average maintenance cost per mile and the road mileage that qualifies for the grant, as detailed in Article 109 in bracket 1B and Part 2 of the 10th schedule. Do you think this is a perverse incentive that needs to be rethought?
Thank you, Agkillah. And that's an excellent question. Not many people know that Article 109, right? So this is a grant for maintenance of state road, not construction of state roads, right? And I think most state government would rather give up this grant because building state roads is expensive and maintenance is expensive. So I don't think the money covers it very well. Given a choice, they will hand all the roads back to federal government. So this what is could have been a potential perverse incentive, but it is not because the amount involved is small and is for maintenance, not construction. If it was a grant for construction, then we need to worry. So at the moment, it's maintenance, so and the amount is small, so I don't think it's really a perverse incentive. But if the grant was changed to construction, then we have a problem in our hand.
Thank you for that, Dr. Bala. I hope that answers the question. I was very curious with that question as well. The next question is to Dr. Khairul or Dr. Naim. What are the key recommendations from the recent roundtable sessions? So Dr. Naim, you mentioned earlier that if we had time, you will cover this. I think it'd be great if the audience could hear what are some of the recommendations that's already been discussed.
Thank you, Dr. Agkillah. As I mentioned earlier, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability, together with WWF Malaysia, has organized a roundtable session that bring together key stakeholders, the policymakers, experts, road developers, and also a number of civil society organizations. The roundtable is aiming to find practical solutions, in particular for Great Jeli Highway. And based on the roundtable, we have came out with 7 key recommendations. Some of the key recommendations have been highlighted by other panelists, but I think I would also like to share it one by one. The first one is on adding more speed reduction features, especially in hotspot roads, to reduce the speed of vehicles. So I think I would also like to relate this question with the first question just now. What is the role of layman? One important rule is to change our driving behavior to ensure that we really follow the speed limit, especially on the hotspot areas. In order for this to take in place, we can install more speed bumps, traverse bars, etc. Number two is relating to installation of wildlife barriers. Such as fencing, viaducts, whether it is overpass or underpass, is another option to avoid wildlife from coming close to the roads. Three, to increase visibility by installing road lights, but this should be carefully manage as well to ensure the road lights will not affect the wildlife activities. Number four, on habitat enrichment. This has been highlighted by Dr. Jason, to restore degraded habitat, establish wildlife sanctuary, for instance, so that the wildlife can have a better feeding ground. And in Johor, for instance, Department of Wildlife and National Park has also established a collaboration with the state government to develop a food bank area so that the elephants will not coming close to the road. Number five, this is relating to stick approach to enforce stricter regulations, enforcement of speed limiting devices, establishment of heavy vehicle driver database, and to one extent to suspend and revoke driving license for those involved in certain incidents if they are not following the existing regulations. And number six, this has been also highlighted by Dr. Bala just now, to have an pilot implementation. But for the stakeholder engagement session, they would like to see more leveraging of new technologies for effective mitigation. Using animal detection sensors, UAV technology, AI to provide early warning to motorists. And last but not least, to intensify awareness and outreach program, add more signage. When we did the session with transport and logistic company, one of the key issues highlighted by them is that our signage are too small, that cannot give proper attention to the driver. And last but not least, it can also start on awareness program at the driving school level. All the seven key recommendations will be further fine-tuned, and hopefully the ministry together with WWF can provide a policy paper for better understanding of policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naim. That was very insightful. But following that comment about improving road infrastructure, and also circling back to Dr. Bala's comments earlier, there is one question. It's very short, but I think it's a very critical question. It says, poachers could also use sensors on roads to target wildlife. How do you think we can mitigate this?
Yeah, I think regardless what we do, poachers will do their stuff, right? Right. It's just like if we develop a technology to protect our house, robbers could also use the same technology, right? So that doesn't stop us from using technology, right? So I think poaching needs to be tackled differently. Right. So we use cars to drive. Poachers use cars to go and transport the animals, right? So doesn't mean we stop using cars. So again, yes, I'm sure they can use, but tackling poaching is a different issue altogether compared to warning motorists, right? So yeah, I don't think it's an issue. Yep. And also, just like camera traps, now we have ways telling us where the policemen are, right? So then it's up to the police now to find better technology to catch the culprits.
Thank you for that, Dr. Bala. Dr. Naim, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I would like to concur with Dr. Bala that people will always take advantage of technology, but we definitely can use technology for providing our intention. And beside that, I think we should also what we so call we should call leverage the technology for the benefits of the motorists.
Thank you, Dr. Naim. Maybe we can take a couple more questions. I think the next question could be something that Dr. Phinn, you could respond to. It says, what are the most effective and practical mitigation strategies for developing designated food or grazing areas for elephants? Should new grazing areas be established using high-yield species such as napier grass, or is it more appropriate to restore native vegetation within elephants' natural habitats?
Oh, yeah, I think this question would be appropriate for the panelists before us, I think. I think for elephant grazing ground, quite a number of organizations are working on it, as WWF, Dr. Jason Horn has shared, and also for the researchers in Sabah, Bora, and others. I think the reason why grass is recommended is because it can grow back very fast. Within 1 month, the grass can be, become tall again, and the animal can come and graze. And it doesn't require too much maintenance. But it is true that sometimes when the grass are too old and is full of silica, sometimes elephants may avoid eating it, or when the area is grown with a lot of weeds, and those weeds the elephant do not favor, and then they may avoid those areas. So sometimes from time to time, there is still maintenance are needed on the ground for this kind of elephant food bank area. I've been working with my stakeholders on the ground, and I'm also learning from my stakeholders on what works and what not, what doesn't. And I think it's great that the panelists before us have already covered that topic to some extent. Yeah, hopefully we can all combine our knowledge together and have say better knowledge on how to attract elephants to certain places. Right now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we are still finding out why. Yeah, some animal behavior sometimes can be complicated. Yes.
Dr.
Thank you for
Agkillah,
that.
may I just want to add to that as well?
Sure.
Yeah, I think building on from Phinn's point, right? What is crucial is the intervention needs to be monitored, right? How whether it works, whether animals are actually coming in there, whether they are actually growing well after feeding on some of these grazing grounds, right? I also concur that the previous session, I like to actually just mention Bora actually has done quite a lot of work on habitat enrichment, and it's got a very, very good way of monitoring how animals are actually responding to this. And also looking into the body index, whether they are actually putting on weight and how they're actually doing fitting on these choices of grass, right? Just to specifically mention napier, right? A lot of us are actually quite worried. Napier it's actually non-native, but they have been around in our landscape for a long time. They are actually prefer some places that are actually more open, and there are a few ways that we can actually control this. And I do believe that this is one way forward of how we could actually introduce feeding area but also we can actually have a suite of different species that is actually suitable to the soil type. It's not planting everything on the site or expect it to grow. It has to be suited to the environment and the soil type as well. So I think that's also very critical. But again, I just want to reaffirm that the monitoring bit is actually very important. We cannot be just creating a lot of grassland without really knowing if animals are actually using it. So I think that's a very critical bit that we need to invest in the monitoring, setting up cameras to see if they're actually present and using it. So that has to be something that we learn along the way with the data that comes in. If I may just conclude with one final point, is a lot of these areas are actually inside forest reserves. And again, I mentioned we need a more open approach to say that it does not have to be just planting trees. We're actually creating a forested landscape and environment that also include open grasslands that will eventually benefit the forest communities in the end, right? So we want to promote a very healthy forest communities that include also open grasslands area. So this is an approach that we need to actually have more open mind. Hopefully the policy can shift towards recognizing the values of grasslands inside forest reserves as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ipin and Dr. Jason. I think there are a couple of questions with regards to behavior, but before that, a simple question, and I think I'm going to open this to all of you. What is or are the differences between environment-sensitive areas and key biodiversity areas? Maybe Dr. Naim, would you like to respond to this?
Thank you, Dr. Agkillah. When we talk about key biodiversity areas or important biodiversity areas, is what has been identified through science evidence. ESA has been gazetted through Plan Malaysia, and it has been demarked in National Physical Plan, so that it can be protected further. But the only things now is about the EIA, the environmental impact assessment, which we need to really strengthen the implementation. In order for the ministry strengthen further from the aspect of Department of Wildlife and National Park, the Jabatan Perkhidmatan has introduced one guidance document on wildlife impact study for the EIA, and the guidance document for preparation and submission of the wildlife management plan in the EIA. The strategy in this aspect is to strengthen the ecological aspect of the EIA process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Naim. Yeah, maybe we'll take a couple more questions before we wrap up. There has been 2 questions that's been posted with regards to how would we fare by educating our young ones. And I'm going to read both the questions because I think they're connected to each other. The first says, do drivers in Malaysia care about safety, especially considering the lack of enforcement? If drivers, particularly those of heavy vehicles, can knock down humans, would they really care about animals and wildlife? Some Malaysian drivers' mentality just not quite there yet. So that was the first question. But I think it also relates to the second one, which says, apart from dedicating 100% effort and focus to existing issues and new projects, has there been any consideration for the Education Ministry to incorporate the importance of wildlife protection into their programs? For example, educating young people. I think there's a link there, but also you can answer them separately. So I'm opening that to the floor.
Maybe I just want to give a very quick answer. I do agree, awareness is very important, education is important, but this will only be effective if we have good enforcement on the ground. And somehow this is somehow lacking in many parts of our roads. And I think that is very, very crucial. So I just want to stop here. Thank you.
Dr. Agkillah, maybe a quick one on that enforcement. You know, like I said, we have such a extensive road network. It's difficult to enforce everywhere. I just want to quote an example. I just came back from Uganda last month. And surprisingly, all the roads near or around national parks, not inside, near or around, all of them have extensive driver's bars that forces you to slow down. And all the drivers everybody curses at the driver's bars, but they are forced to slow down. And they are very extensive. And so which forces them to slow down without people to enforce. And this is in Uganda, which is a poor country. I'm sure if they can do it, we can do it.
Thank you for that, Dr. Jason and Dr. Naim. I'm probably just going to do one last question before we wrap up for the day. And if the speakers would be kind enough to also take a look at other questions and respond in writing, that'd be great for our participants. So the final question for the day is, so this participant read something about the construction of wildlife corridors to reduce roadkill incidents, but is curious on who is going to actively manage them in the long run so they remain functional for animal migration. So it's not just about the roads per se, but also about the wildlife that goes through it. Maybe Dr. Bala, would you like to take this question?
Yeah. Why do you give me the difficult ones? No, but management of this stuff falls under multiple stakeholders. So I don't think a single stakeholder can manage all these issues. So I think we need to start with the road players, people in the road industry, right? So, and I've been working in that sector for many, many years, and I personally have seen a change in attitude. Road designers and planners are a lot more sensitive, a lot more aware of the issues, and there have been efforts to design better roads. But we are still a long way to go. So I think we still need to keep pushing in that direction for roads to be better planned and better designed. We are making progress, more to be done, but definitely the right direction. But in terms of managing corridors, a bit more tricky. If it's forests, you go forest reserve, wildlife reserve, you go Peritan. But there's also a lot of state land which doesn't belong to state. There's no single authority to manage. There's also important plantation areas, which private sector, but important corridors. So we are dealing with multiple stakeholders, and it's never easy. And that's why our CFS initiative, after 20 years, we are still struggling, right? So the ability to manage multiple stakeholders and their varying interests has been proven to be difficult. But I think the CFS provides a good platform how multiple stakeholders can work together. But at the moment, I think we don't have enough people. Ministry does not have capacity. I think Wildlife Department also does not have capacity. So I think working together with civil society, people like WWF and other NGOs, and even private companies which have come on board is still the right way to move forward. So there is no quick and easy answer to this. There's a lot of hard work.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bala. Is there any other speakers who would like to respond to that, or should we wrap up?
I think I would like to highlight here that avoiding and minimizing the forest fragmentation should be our key priority. When there is a need for us to mitigate on the existing roads, for instance, we should always use science evidence. We need to study the behavior, not only the behavior of wildlife, but also the human behavior, and promote a coexistence approach.
Thank you very much, Doctor. With that, I think we come to conclude this session. Before we end, I would like to emphasize that we've heard the science and data from Dr. Phinn, the conservation realities from Dr. Jason, infrastructure insights from Dr. Bala, and governance perspectives from Dr. Naim. And all of this all of them have listed many recommendations today, but to summarize all of that into 3 concise policy recommendations, I think the first is we have to continue to mainstream biodiversity into national planning and economic sectors. I think we've started, but there's still a way to go. Conservation elements must be embedded in development plans, sectoral policies, and public awareness, supported by science-based and coexistent approaches, as mentioned by Dr. Naim. Number 2, safeguard ecological corridors and restore habitats through multi-actor collaboration. Again, I think we've started, but we can do a lot more better in this area, and maybe we need to bring in more experts as well to this conversation, especially to landscapes like Greek Jali Highway or East West Highway that we've been talking about a lot today. And third, integrate biodiversity safeguards into both new and existing roads. As mentioned by Dr. Bala, I think his points, there were a lot of sub-points to it as well, which we could pick up if you had listened to him more closely. So these policy recommendations highlighted in the session will be captured, consolidated, and taken forward to inform Malaysia's climate and biodiversity governance agenda. So with that, on behalf of Climate Governance Malaysia and our partner, Tropical Rainforest Conservation and Research Centre, I thank our speakers, Dr. Phinn, Dr. Jason, Dr. Bala, and Dr. Naim, and all of you for joining us today. Please do also take a moment to complete the Zoom survey before you leave. It should come up now. Yeah, that's right. It's up there now. And please also don't forget that more sessions in the Roundtable series will be running throughout October. So stay tuned via CGM's website, newsletter, LinkedIn, and WhatsApp group. Together, we can work towards making our roads safer for both people and wildlife. With that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, doctors.
Take care, everybody.